I'm on the phone with Anne from Pikapi Podcast, and we've made our way up to movie 11, Giratina and the Sky Warrior. And of course, this is our comparison of the Japanese and English ending theme songs for the Pokemon movies. And in this one, the matchup is Krystal K with 1 on the Japanese side, not to be confused with the Denise Lara song from the second Pokemon movie dub album. And on the English side this time, we have Aaron Brotherton with This Is a Beautiful World. Very different songs this time. I have, I think, some interesting points on each of them. But we start off by talking about what we know about the musicians behind these songs. Anne, what can you tell me about Krystal K?
All right, Krystal K. She was born Krystal K. Williams in Yokohama to an African-American father and a Korean mother, and both her parents were musicians. Her mother was a professional singer. Her father, I guess music was a bit more of a hobby to him. He was with the U.S. Navy. But they exposed her early to music and took her to a lot of shows, and she got to meet a lot of famous artists and kind of was surrounded by talent at a young age. And so it was not super surprising that she made her way into the music industry. And she's fluent in English and Japanese, and those are the 2 languages she primarily sings in and writes in when she does her own writing. She started singing professionally as a child and primarily performed for commercials, but was signed and released her first album, CLL, Crystal Lover Light, when she was just 14. She wasn't especially active after that until 2001, when she came back on the scene and sort of rebranded herself as a pop R&B artist. And from there, she steadily rose in popularity and got to be one of the mainstays on the top charts. She collaborated with a lot of artists that may or may not be familiar to you listeners, like M-Flow, Boa, Chemistry, and the one that got her on my radar was Akanishi Jin of KAT-TUN. She's also done songs for a few anime that some of you listeners might know, like Motherland for Full Metal Alchemist, and today's topic, a song for a little film called Pokemon Giratina Tosora no Hanataba Shaymin. And by the way, she's the voice of Nurse Joyce Chansey in that film. The producers were actually considering Krystal K to do a song for a Pokemon movie since 2001 after hearing her sing on another film's soundtrack, so I don't know why it took them so long to make the dream come true, or if this was just the song and the time that it worked out best. Around 2011, she signed to Universal, and she has debuted in the United States, but she hasn't been super active with new releases lately. Her last release, I think, was the US debut in 2014. Her fans keep pestering her for a Korean debut, though. Well, I don't know if that'll ever happen, if she learns to speak it, maybe. Let's see, Krystal K, she was really popular through the 2000-2010 range. Like I said, she's kind of stopped releasing things lately, but her real, I guess, legacy and claim to fame is how she's paved the way for biracial performers in Japan, because she was born in Japan and she speaks Japanese and is a Japanese artist, but she looks like a foreigner. And not just in the music industry, but all throughout entertainment, mixed race talent often credits Krystal K as their idol and the person who kind of made it so that they could succeed. And she's considered a pioneer in that field. And it's all the more impressive because R&B was a bit of a new genre when she was just starting out. It was less established at the time. So her and like some acts like Utada Hikaru were the ones that had the success and kind of got that ball rolling. So Krystal K really was blazing a lot of trails through her career, and it's very impressive that she was able to accomplish so much, kind of being at the start of all of it. And that's what I've got on her.
What about this song, One? Who wrote it, and any idea how it got attached to this project?
Yes, so the song was Krystal K is the artist. The lyrics were done by Taguchi Shun and Sakia Kenjiro. Neither of them do I have a lot of information on. They kind of work with Epic Records, though I can't see any particular ties to the Pokemon Company. If my research is lacking, someone can write in and tell me. But as far as how it got attached to this movie, it's a little bit of an unknown, because on the one hand, they've been wanting, as I said, they'd been wanting to hire her for a Pokemon movie ending theme since 2001, and for whatever reason, 2008 was the one where they got her. this song, we're not sure if it was in development or not, because when it was announced that she would do a Pokemon movie, the single that came out immediately after, everyone thought was going to be the Pokemon movie single, because financially that would have made the most sense, but it wasn't. It was a completely separate single. And then one released like a few days, I think, before this movie dropped in theaters. So it kind of suggests that maybe she had worked on it with a bit more eye to what the plot of the movie was and tying it in a bit closer, but there's really no data on that available. So it could be that it was one she was just working on in-house, and when she got contacted, she was like, oh, this will work perfect, let's just tweak it. And then it just ended up releasing later for other reasons. But yeah, it's a bit of a dead end when I tried to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, unfortunately, unless a song is really specifically written, we sometimes don't know to what degree or how it got there. So,
yeah.
Not a total surprise on your end, Anne. So, back on the English side, Aaron Brotherton. Unfortunately, I was not able to find out a whole lot about him. The most recent info I have is that he is working in marketing at the Nautilus Corporation in the Portland, Oregon area. And if you don't know, Nautilus is a manufacturer of exercise equipment. I think they make the Bowflex, because I saw that in there. So apparently music is kind of his side career. He had some involvement with Pokemon, obviously. He's also apparently done some stuff with Razor and Tie, which I think is a production company that is somehow related to the Kids Bop series. So you'll see his name listed in there. And I did see some pictures that looked to be of him with a guitar and stuff like that. So obviously does do some musical work, but it doesn't seem like that was his main job, even at the time possibly. I think he may have just been in the right place at the right time and known the right people. As far as I know right now, he's out on the West Coast and in the Portland, Oregon area. So, don't know much about that. As far as the song writing itself, it's the usual combination you're going to be hearing a lot of going forward, John Leffler and David Wolfert. That is, of course, the 4th and 5th generation dub songwriting team. Don't know much about how this song was written and how it was developed, unfortunately. I never did get an interview with him, unlike some of the other folks around this time. But that's about all I can tell you about the sort of background of the musician in the song. Well, with that out of the way, I guess the next thing we gotta do is we gotta talk about the sort of sound and feel and content of these songs. We go back to the Japanese side. And one, you said pop R&B. I would have to agree that that is sort of the genre for this. What else sort of struck you about the instrumentation?
Well, she does have a wide kind of range, I guess, within the pop R&B style. But when this song came out, I had been listening to Krystal K a little bit, and I was in Japan at the time. So when this song dropped, it was everywhere. And there was something about the flow of it that felt a little different than what she usually did. Like a little bit less of a gritty, we're gonna jam to this in the club kind of a feel, and like kind of more of a grandiose feel. So there's that to it. Like it's definitely still pop R&B, but it's kind of just got a different energy than you typically associate with her songs and with that genre, I think. In my opinion, I'm not a music aficionado. We've established this over the many episodes together.
Always good of us to acknowledge our limits. But yeah, I definitely agree that this has a certain, I would say, fluidity to it that sort of moves around and maybe dances a little bit in sort of a very consistent or not stopping motion. Is it sort of like the words that's coming to me there? But definitely fluidity. It sort of goes around there. I think you could do some fun mixing stuff with this, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I didn't get to listen to all the remixes on the single, but the single has several different versions of the song and mixes, and I think you're right. I think it lends itself to a lot of experimentation just because it has that slightly different vibe to it.
Yeah, at the same time, though, I would say it has a bit of an airy sort of high above feeling to it. Does that sound about right?
I do, but I don't necessarily know that we're on the same page with those sentiments. Like, could you explain a little further?
Well, when we talk about the English one, I'm going to have an interesting dynamic I'm going to bring up. But this one definitely seems to focus on sort of the sense of, there's a sense of, I guess, a little bit of flight there and lifting up off the ground. Is that sort of does that make a little more sense?
I guess, like, both in terms of her voice and, like, the general feel of the song, you mean? Like, I do get the feel of, like flight, and when this song was set to all the commercials and you saw, like, Shaymin flying through the air and all these flower petals blowing in the wind, like, it fit that image perfectly, yes. And then there is kind of a sense, too, with her voice, the balance and the rhythm of the R&B feel is more present in the music than in her lyrics. The lyrics almost seem to float above it, if that makes sense. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not sure if we mean the same things when we say those words, but I do kind of, get a sense of floating above.
What about the lyrics themselves? Obviously, there's that sort of hook on the chorus, you are the one. But what else is in this song lyrically?
Yeah, this is a song about gratitude, kind of as you would expect from a Pokemon that is the gratitude Pokemon. It's kind of just expressing your thankfulness for having a special person in your life, a friend, or possibly a little more than that, who kind of gives you strength and has helped you to grow and become the person you are and is, gently guiding you to the person you will be. And that's a repeated lyric in the song is like, I just want to say thank you for everything you've done. And there's also mentions of things like thousands of flower petals come flowing down on us, and like a lot of imagery about like you are so radiant and things that are kind of reflected in the movie. But the primary sentiment is expressing gratitude for all the memories that you've made and the influence that this person has had on you.
Sounds like that really ties in, maybe not as much to the plot of the movie, but certainly, to Shaymin's sort of species nickname there, the gratitude Pokemon. There's definitely an element of that. Yeah,
I'm definitely seeing less direct plot tie-ins, but compared to some of the other songs on the Japanese side, this one is definitely tying into our main Pokemon character in a very large way.
Any of the other characters in there? It sounds like, the sort of the main antagonist is, well, spoiler alert, he used to work for sort of our character of the movie that is the good guy. So I guess the gratitude doesn't quite work there correctly because of how that plot resolves. And I don't know that it works out any particularly well for Giratina either in terms of any sort of relation there.
No, Evil Intern did not get a shout out in this song, but you could definitely make a case for like all the traveling companions and their relationships to each other and to their Pokemon and to Shaymin, and to their families. This song is the one that plays on the ending credits as they're all sending bouquets of gratitude flowers back home to Mom and to Brock's family and to Dawn's mom. So I definitely think the lyrics to kind of tend to talk more about friendship than familial relationships, but I definitely think all those relationships of like, you have guided me to where I am, and like, where are we going to be when we become adults? And you're an irreplaceable friend who's been guiding me and giving me the strength to move forward. Like, that definitely applies to every character in this film who is on the side of good.
Are there any specific passages, obviously most songs in Japanese, but any specific lines you want to call out here?
I really love the bridge where it's I don't know if I'm reading this correctly. I think it's Senbon no hana bara something sosoide. Like, thousands of flower petals come pouring down, and like, again, it's just kind of that flurry of flowers and flight, that image you get of Shaymin. Like, that's the one we all have, is him or her, it flying through the air, and like flowers are everywhere and everyone's feeling touched at the kind of that climactic last moment where they say goodbye. Like, that's kind of the big moment for me. But then also, like, just gently giving me the strength to move forward. For that, I love you. Like, that line in the chorus, like, for some reason just strikes me in the heart because I am the Ash and Pikachu fangirl. Like, they are the core of the series for me, and so any line that kind of highlights, like, that to me is the two of them. If this song were about the two of them, it would be because of that line. I do also want to call out one last line from the chorus. I just want to tell you, thank you, my one. It just reminds me of that song that Ash and Dawn sing together in Japanese, High Touch, where that part of the lyrics where both his verse and her verse, they have these things where it's like, I just want to tell you this one thing. Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you this one thing. It's okay. Thank you for everything you said, or stuff like that. And it just feels called out in this song. And like I said, it's a song of gratitude that I feel could apply to any one character in this movie and their relationship to others. And that one calls out to me Ash, Dawn, Brock. So.
Well, not sure I can quite match that. That may give you an idea where our third segment is headed. But
oh dear.
This Is a Beautiful World has very different instrumentation. It's definitely sort of rock-driven. It's got a electric guitar, male vocals, of course, and all of that. Anything else you found notable about the instrumentation there?
Well, I do like this song. I think maybe you could speak more to this, but there's a lot of lines in it about how it's a living, the world is a living symphony, etc. So I was very surprised initially, that it had an electric guitar and kind of more of a rock feel instead of, something more melodic. And I wouldn't say that's completely absent, the symphonic aspect of the movie, but it did kind of strike me at first, this was not what I expected after reading the lyrics and then finally listening to the song. Were you taken out of it or taken by surprise, or?
Well, I'd say it's got certainly sort of a nature/ecological bend to the lyrics themselves, that's for sure. Having grown up in the 90s, this isn't quite on the level of some of sort of the eco-friendly songs you might have heard in that era, but it's definitely about appreciating nature. So there's definitely a thankfulness component to it. But, I think the song is maybe more about sort of lower level, sort of taking a look at what's in front of you and what's nearby you and appreciating that. So there's sort of a dynamic there.
Yeah.
I guess the one thing I wanted to mention that I'm not quite as fond of here is some of the vocal processing is not really to my liking. Some of the chorus or whatever, not in terms of lyrical structure, but chorus effect is where you sort of make something sound like there's more than one of them using it's sort of like reverb, but not exactly the same. And I don't know that sounded quite as good. Maybe there should have been a separate backup singer or something like that. That didn't quite jive with me as much as I would like. It sounds a bit odd to me, I guess.
I would agree with that, yeah.
But I kind of wanted to, you've noticed probably by now that I've been making this sort of disparity and kind of between, one being sort of the more hovering or flying type one, and this is more of the ground one. Do remember, if you have somehow forgotten from this movie, that Shaymin, of course, has those two forms. It has the land form and the sky form.
Ooh, well done.
In a certain way, I kind of wanted to point that out, that these are sort of approaching the main character sort of from two different kind of perspectives in terms of at least their instrumentation, I would say. Would you agree with that, Evan, at all? Or am I maybe just trying to put a through line here, or what?
Well, it never occurred to me until you just said it, but now that you have, thinking of it in that way, approaching Shaymin's character or Shaymin's influence from the two different angles, I'm looking at these lyrics in a whole new light now, and Shaymin does start off that movie as kind of a self-centered little brat, and by the end of the movie has learned to feel gratitude for itself and to appreciate the world and the people around it. So in that sense, you might be onto something with this song is exploring a different aspect of Shaymin and its character. Yeah.
Well, it is, yeah, especially towards the beginning of the movie, it is a little bit of a jerk, although if you look at the first, 5 minutes of the movie, it goes through quite a bit in there. thinking Giratina is trying to eat it and things like that. But
true, but like the big climax of the movie for Shaymin's character, that moment where it turns around to Satoshi and is like, thank you. Like, up until then, it couldn't say thank you ever. It never said thank you. It was always usually a backhanded insult compliment situation whenever anyone did anything nice for it. So, like, I'm kind of, now that you've brought it up, really warming up to the idea of this song being about Shaymin specifically, and, like, learning to open your eyes and look at the world and be like, oh my gosh, this is a beautiful world. There are wonderful people around me. Like, and they could just go away and I might have to say goodbye. I need to be thankful every day and grateful for that magic.
Yeah, I had not really thought of the song either. I thought it was more addressing the audience.
Exactly, yeah, but you've brought me a new perspective on it, so.
That's really interesting. I think these sort of mid-episode discoveries can often be the most fun parts of these discussions, and I think this is no exception.
Indeed.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm not sure how much else I have to say about this particular song. Like I said, I did want to kind of point out that disparity in instrumentation, though, just because I think it sort of, in a way, does kind of still fit the character from the movie. I don't know how you would have written, like, they didn't try and do, like, 4 different endings or whatever for the Deoxys movie, or, like, 2 songs for Giratina, or we will come up to a dub movie in a couple episodes that does have 2 different ending themes based on the same song, but that's a little ways off. But like I said, doing a little research of this, I couldn't help but notice that.
No, that is pretty cool.
Keep listening for more from this interview.